I'd like to thank everybody for joining me today. Today, I want to talk about the topic of planning your estate and what that really means. Estate planning is a word that's thrown out, and I think a lot of people, a lot of clients don't understand what that is. But if you think about estate planning, it's about control, clarity, and confidence, not just the paperwork, but what it really does for our clients. So, the goal today is to show how a properly designed plan protects your family, your assets, and your legacy. So, planning is based on your goals. So, every plan needs to start with, the goals, not a product, but understanding what the client's trying to accomplish. Think of assembling a puzzle. And this puzzle is going to have four pillars that frame the conversation. The first one is going to be legacy. This is the story your wealth tells. The family, who leads, what protection, who inherits. What do you want to be remembered for? Then we look at the family and what do you want how do you want your family treated? If you're gone, how do you want to take care of your kids, your grandkids, your great grandkids? How long do you want to put your plan in place? Finally, we look at lifestyle. How do you preserve the freedom and flexibility of your lifestyle, of what you want to do from now till the time you pass away? What does that lifestyle look? And does your plan fit the goals that you have in place? Finally, long-term care. And I like including long-term care in here because, who's going to take care of you when you can't take care of yourself? So when you start thinking about these goals and they're clear and you understand what those goals are going to be, now you can move into figuring out what the right structure is for you. Now, we've had a shifting landscape in the estate tax area. Right now, as of 2026, the estate tax exemption is 15 million per person, 30 million per couple if it's set up right. And that's now designed to be permanent. So no more sunset like we've had before. The exemption is stable and indexed for inflation. So now for a lot of clients, we can move away from the estate tax conversation and focus on income tax basis step up and let that planning take more of a center stage. But we have to remember there are a lot of states that have a very low state inheritance tax. So federal may not apply, but you may be in a state that does have a state estate tax that we have to be careful of. And so we want to make sure that we address both the estate tax side and the income tax side as we move forward. So I said before, estate planning isn't about the documents. It's about the direction that those documents can create. What is it that you want to project into your documents and into your planning to make sure that those forms, they're not just forms, they're not just paperwork, but the thought and planning that goes into that to make sure you're giving people the direction that you want now and into the future. So first, organize your goals and your objectives. Then you memorialize them in the correct documents. So it isn't just fill in the blank documents, but thinking, what do I want these documents to do for me and for my family from this point going forward? And you'll be able to move forward in a way that makes sense. I look at planning as starting with putting an umbrella over your plan, a properly designed plan that keeps the rain off everything that matters. So if you have that picture in mind, well, what should that umbrella cover? Well, number one, your family and loved ones. How do you want them to be taken care of? What is it that you want that umbrella to do for them? Then we look at your business, your partnerships, those business investment relationships that need to know, in your planning, if you're not there, what happens? So start thinking about that umbrella as what happens when you're not there, as well as designing those steps that need to take place to make those goals happen. Your retirement and investments. Now, we may not put your retirement accounts inside of a revocable living trust, but we want your planning there. Again, take a step back. This is about the overall planning. So what does this umbrella look like? And make sure that everything is coordinated. And finally, your charitable and faith-driven legacy. If you want to pass on a legacy beyond your family and your business, now we're talking typically charitable giving. And how do you want that to be incorporated into your overall plan? Now, when I start into most plans and I review a lot of plans, I see a lot of gaps. Even high net worth, successful families overlook a lot of the basics. So when we look at these, it's we've got outdated or missing beneficiary designations. I've been the bearer of bad news that, you know, mom or dad prior to their death hadn't updated their beneficiaries on their retirement account. There was a divorce and an ex-spouse was never taken off. All of these things are easy to overcome, but it takes time and planning. Real estate or accounts not titled in the trust or not titled where we want them to be. And there again, now it's outside of that umbrella. You don't have powers of attorney or healthcare directives, so we don't have somebody that can make decisions for you if you lose mental capacity. And business ownerships are not aligned with the estate documents. So we now have a mismatch of goals, mismatch of objectives. The alignment needs to be there for both the business and the estate. And so if you think about it, where good intentions fail, coordination wins. We want to make sure everything's coordinated and everything flows the right way. So what does a properly designed estate plan look like? Well, number one, let's avoid probate. In a lot of states, probate is not expensive, but it's time consuming. And the people that really know where everything is have just passed away. So let's design this estate plan to avoid probate so we just create more efficiency, both time and financial. We determine who's in control, your trustees, your executors, the guardians for minor kids, conservators. All of these people are people that we want you to designate. Who do you want to be in control of your estate when you can't be? And that could be during your life and then definitely after you pass. What legacy do you want to create? How do you want to be remembered and what actions do you want to discourage or encourage? This is part of your plan. This is the legacy you're passing on. How do you want to be remembered? And finally, let's reduce the taxes. We've got income taxes, state tax, generation skipping tax. Uncle Sam has their finger in everything. Let's look at how do we design this plan in a way that maximizes what goes to your family, your favorite charities, your business, partners or employees. Let's maximize this according to your goals and reduce what's going to Uncle Sam. There again, there's a lot of steps that we can take, but there again, it's based off of your goals and what we're trying to accomplish. Finally, think about what a proper plan delivers. We talked about avoiding probate and the administrative delays at death. We can minimize income and estate taxes. We can preserve family privacy and create harmony in the family. If there's issues in the family. What those issues are. Let's address them. Let's don't, bury them and hope it doesn't come up, because it will. When mom and dad are gone, we want to make sure the family stays together. And so let's address it the best way we can to keep the family peace going forward. And it's, think about transferring wisdom, not just wealth. That legacy goes beyond money. That legacy goes to what is it that you want to pass on and be remembered for. So let's use the documents as a way to pass on that wisdom, not just worrying about money and wealth. So the approach I like to take is, we don't just create documents. We orchestrate outcomes. The outcomes are based off of you. We want to align the legal, tax, insurance, and liquidity planning. We want to make sure those documents and strategies always work together. There's a lot of planning opportunities. Let's just make sure we're using the ones that make sense, but let's make sure they all work together in a coordinated approach. So if you think about this, we take complexity and move it into clarity. Everybody's estate has complexity. We want to make sure that your wishes are known, everything's drawn out in a way that moves your goals and objectives forward in a clear, concise, and clarified manner. So appreciate you being on. If you have questions, reach out. If not, we'll talk again next week. Thank you.